Today, we're going to do something really cool. We're going to look at our most famous myths and legends and find the surprising science hidden inside them. I mean, think about it. What if every single myth, every story about some monster or a haunted place actually has a little bit of truth to it? Not just, a moral to the story, but a real physical thing that happened. Okay, let's get into it. Well, it turns out that a lot of our most out there legends, they're not just made up stories. No, they actually have deep roots in real-world science, and we're just now getting the tools to piece it all together. And for our first case study, we're starting with a big one, probably the most iconic mythical creature of all time, right? The dragon. But our story doesn't begin in some fantasy novel. It starts in a real place with a real documented history. So let's jump in our time machine and head back to the ancient Roman city of Hierapolis, which is in modern-day Turkey. Now, in this city, there was this one spot that people both feared and worshipped. They called it the Plutonium, or even more chillingly, the Gate to Hell. And get this, we actually have a first-hand account from back then. A Greek geographer named Strabo, he went there himself, and he wrote, and I quote, "This space is full of a vapor so misty and dense that one can scarcely see the ground. Any animal that passes inside meets instant death." Can you just imagine seeing that with your own eyes? Absolutely terrifying. So naturally, the legend just exploded from there. People believed this place was a deadly dragon's lair. They said it had a poisonous breath that could literally knock birds out of the sky and kill a full-grown bull in seconds. But here's the weird part. The priests from the local temple, they could walk right in and be totally fine. It looked like a miracle, right? Proof that this was a real gateway to the underworld. So, what was really going on? Was it some kind of supernatural power, a god, a dragon? Or could it be something much more down to earth? Could it just be science? Well, the answer lies in a molecule you've definitely heard of, carbon dioxide, or CO2. It's an invisible, odorless gas, and in places like this, it seeps up from volcanic cracks deep in the earth. Now, here's the key part. It is heavier than the air we breathe. So what happens? In a place like a cave, it settles in pools on the ground, just like water, pushing all that good, life-giving oxygen up and out of the way. And suddenly, it all clicks into place. The myth of a dragon's poisonous breath. That was the invisible cloud of CO2 gas. The supernatural killing power, that was just oxygen being pushed away at ground level. And the priest's divine protection? Well, they were just tall. Their heads were safely above the gas cloud, while smaller animals closer to the ground were walking right into a death trap. So, here's the really important takeaway. The legend wasn't a lie. Not really. There was a real, deadly, invisible force in that cave. The dragon's breath was a very real, very lethal cloud of volcanic gas. The people back then were just explaining this terrifying phenomenon with the best tool they had available to them. A really good story. Okay, that's pretty amazing, right? But this pattern, this idea of science creating myths, it goes way, way beyond just dragons. Let's look at a few more. Okay, how about this one? The sirens, right? Those beautiful women whose songs lured sailors to their deaths. Well, that whole legend probably got started when sailors, tired and far from home, saw and heard manatees from a distance. Or the Cyclops, the giant with one eye. That myth almost certainly comes from ancient Greeks finding elephant skulls and thinking that big central nasal cavity was actually a single eye socket. And you know that creepy feeling of a ghostly presence in a room? That can actually be caused by something called infrasound, a super low-frequency sound we can't hear but can feel, or even something as simple as carbon monoxide poisoning. So this all leads to a much bigger question, doesn't it? Why do we even do this? Why does it seem like our brains are basically hardwired to invent monsters? Well, at its core, it's all about survival. Our brains are just amazing at finding patterns. And in a world filled with dangers we don't understand, we automatically create stories to try and make sense of the chaos. And probably most important of all, to warn other people. The whole process is actually pretty logical when you think about it. Step 1, you see something really weird and unexplainable, like animals just dropping dead for no reason near a cave. Step 2, you try to explain it with what you know. Maybe a god is angry, or maybe there's a monster living in there. And step 3, you turn that explanation into a memorable story, a myth, so you can pass on that super important warning, hey, whatever you do, don't go into that cave. So when you look at it that way, these myths, they weren't just silly fantasies. Not at all. In a very real way, they were the science of their day. They were the framework people used to understand their world and, stay alive in it. They were basically humanity's very first explainers. And that just leaves us with one last kind of mind-blowing thought. As we try to make sense of our own crazy world with AI and exploring deep space and quantum physics, what are the strange things happening right now, the mysteries we can't explain today, that will eventually become the myths and legends for people in the future?